welcome to Fun Problems. The problems of fun. I'm Peter C. Hayward.
I'm AJ Brandon.
And today, AJ, I would like to quote from the Bible, aka Daniel.games.
The Game Design Bible, yes. I know it's a good book.
A finished game should be elegant. It should appear childishly simple and not far from self-explanatory. Coming up with complex things is easy. Coming up with simple things is hard. That sentence, or those three sentences, I feel are worthy of a full episode. So that's what we're diving into today. Any maintenance we need to do? What's the word? Housekeeping.
Follow up. No, I think we're good. We've been having even better times with the Discord than we usually do. Lots of people having good conversations there. I'm making new friends. It's great. Hop in if you're not.
Yeah, you've made your first friend. It's very exciting for you. What are you, 34?
I am. Well, as of 3 days from now.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, Discord's great. I'm back from England for all of 1 week, so we're going to try and record like a month's worth of episodes in a week because I'm about to go back to Australia. Also, you're currently up here, whereas normally I put you down here. So if I'm looking up here, I'm actually looking at AJ, even though it might not look like I am. I wonder if I can move where you are on the screen without messing things up. I cannot. So when you hear Daniel 3:41, what does that make you think?
I so strongly agree with this. I'm very glad that you want to do an episode on this. I don't have any notes prepared for it, but I think you and I, for the most part, have very similar design aesthetic preferences. And I think that this is probably the strongest one for both of us and the thing that we overlap on the most. And I think one of the highest priorities for us, where I think I've said this before on air, there's almost no problems you can have in a game that can't be solved just by slapping an extra rule in it, except having too many rules, you know?
Yeah. The obvious, the unhelpfully obvious first step is to add a rule to fix it. And
I can't tell you how many times I'll be playtesting with people who are, gamers and stuff, and we'll bump up against a problem. I'm like, okay, I'll have to think on how to fix that. They're like, oh, I know how to fix it. You just add a rule so this can't happen. It's like, yeah, that would solve it, but that is what I'm trying to do for every problem that I have. Because you do it for every problem, all of a sudden your rule book is 10 times as long and hard to remember and complex and going completely against all the ideas that we care about.
I agree with everything you're saying. I will also say, and I think I say this almost every episode at this point, my favorite moment as a game designer is when I can remove a rule to solve two problems. Oh, it's so good. Have I told you my Tiny Folk example that I did about 3 months ago or so?
Don't believe so.
So it wasn't even really a problem. So Tiny Folk has these. I'm going to give slightly too many details. Tell me when you've fallen asleep. You have 3 workers, and the 3 workers have unique abilities, but you can also upgrade these workers. So you buy what's called artifacts, and you put it on the worker, and for the rest of the game, that worker has that artifact. The 3 workers are the 3 artifacts are fairly simple, and you can have like multiple between your baristas, and each barista can have multiple artifacts on them. So you can have a bunny and a spellbook and a wand, and they're the only 3, and they're all relatively simple. And the time that you buy these artifacts is at end of rounds, and you would also at end of round buy these thimbles. Thimbles are just basically inventory space, so you could spend your money either on artifacts or on thimbles, but they all bought at the same time. And that was really obnoxious to write, because you had to have the buy artifacts and thimbles phase, and I had to work out how many victory points, and it was a big old mess. And it wasn't the end of the world. You'd buy them all with coins. So what I did was I just cut coins. Now, instead of coins, the currency is thimbles, and thimbles, as well as being a currency, let you store resources. And it's just a really clean, it just cuts a whole, transaction and component out of the game and makes writing it all really easily. There's no longer a buy artifacts and thimbles stage, and you don't have to explain that thimbles don't have to go on a worker, even though artifacts do. And it's just, it makes me so happy. It really makes me happy to just cut a rule.
Yeah, it also sounds like there would be a more interesting decision there because it's costing you thimbles, which you can use for something else. They have a use besides just the coins. I mean,
exactly.
Granted, you could spend the coins for either one, but still.
Yeah, all of it. And then at the same time, instead of having different victory points for everything, I was just every thimble is 1 victory point, every artifact is 1 victory point. So when you spend 3 thimbles to buy an artifact, you are losing 2 victory points, but building your engine without more rules. You know what I mean? Anyway,
yeah.
So this is all very good stuff about rule cutting, but I think this is subtly different to the topic of today's episode, because childishly simple or obviously simple is different. So I just got back from Origins, where I met some listeners, including Duncan, who is one of the most regulars in our Discord. Super lovely time. Hung out with Duncan for basically 4 days straight. Do you know? I'm now just gossiping instead of actually doing our topic.
Are you gossiping about Duncan on air? How dare you? Duncan's lovely.
Do you know what Duncan does at a convention now? You're going to love this.
Where's the tiara?
Wears a tiara with his name on it, and it's unhelpful advice. And I was just so delighted to see that. It was very cool, and everyone remembered him because of the tiara. And you can take it off, which you can't do easily with this.
For new listeners, this is how to stand out at conventions. Peter has a blue beard and blue hair, which you would know if you're watching this on YouTube, but if you're listening, you might not know. And that really helps him stand out and be memorable, in addition to his very memorable personality. And
incredible good looks. You always forget how handsome I am.
I do. It's just so obvious, you know? You don't have to think about it.
If you are listening and not watching, just take our word on it. Don't do any more research than this. Just assume I am extremely good looking and do not look into it any further. Okay, gossip section done. So, Childishly Simple is... Now, I design a lot of party games. Ever since Things and Rings took off, I've been like, you know what? I seem to have a knack for that, so I'll do more party games. So I've been party game. And party games particularly lend themselves to being childishly simple. One of my favorite games of all time is Just One, and Just One, you can explain that in 2 sentences, and that is pretty much every rule in the game, and every other rule is answered by the title of the game. That's one of my favorite things about teaching it. How many guesses do you get? Just one. How many blah, blah, blah? Just one. It's all right there. I was teaching a game that I'm working on with Matt Bunche, who's a LA designer who I work with. He did Muddy Than Sword with me. And I taught the game, and then someone jumped in and was like, hey, can I play? And I was like, yeah, I'll teach it again. And 30 seconds later, I had finished the second teach. And someone, I can't remember who, one of the playtesters was like, I really love that you can explain this entire game in 30 seconds. And that is a really good example of childishly simple. And again, party games really lend themselves to this. So I wanted to sort of look at this from a... obviously, that sentence is all you need to know, the Daniel.Games quote. But I wanted to kind of dive into it with examples. So I spent last night going through old game designs and new game designs and some published game designs to find examples. Because I think that... Go ahead.
I just have one tiny thought on like the defining the childishly simple. So let me know if I'm in the same headspace as you. It's not just so unbelievably simple that it's easy to teach and like very simple to play and everything, like your turns aren't complex, but I think that there's also an element of deceptiveness, you know, like where it's like the childishly simple. I think this comes from the quote where it's like the depth comes from interactions in the game system, not from the rules themselves. And so like if you just taught someone the rules, their initial reaction might be like, what, that's it? How is there a game here? But then they start playing and like, because this goes here and then this goes here, I have to think about it.
Yeah, and my examples, I think, it's hard to display childishly simple. It's hard to do childishly simple. I mean, that's, again, in the quote, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to design something non-complex.
Can I do one more element of this?
Yeah, please.
I think another thing that stands out to me is when you explain the rules, and it's almost like, how else could you possibly do it other than the way you chose?
So the word I was about to use is self-evident. And I think that's, maybe this episode's more about self-evidence than childishly simple, but it's this idea of, of course it happens like that. Like, obviously. And there's a million ways you can do this. We've talked in the past about ludonarrative cohesion and stuff like that, where it's like, obviously the tractor token weighs more than the mouse token. I mean, Critter Kitchen, you know, small, medium, large, fast, medium, speed, and slow. You want stuff to be intuitive. You want stuff to be as rules light as possible, but you want stuff to be self-evident. So I didn't want to. Okay,
can I jump in for one more thing?
Yeah, please. You don't have to ask. You co-host this podcast.
I know, but I don't like interrupting a train of thought when you're in a roll. You know, I lose my train of thought so easily. So I'm wondering, is this conversation structured around games as a whole, or are we also going to be talking about individual mechanics or something?
So for the most part, I think my examples are about components, but I want to tie it into games as a whole.
Okay,
so
cool.
This is almost a counter to... so I just went to Origins. I sat in a room and played prototypes for 4 days straight. As you know, my favorite thing to do. You've seen me do this many times. You've done this many times with me. I just love sitting there and playing prototypes. And One thing I identified this time, and one reason I want to do this, and I'm not going to name any particular games or anything like that, but I definitely noticed when a game was put in front of me, I was like, I mean, perhaps cruelly, perhaps unfairly, a part of my brain was like, this is not going to get published. Like when something just has so many moving parts and bits, and obviously I don't know. I'm not what's the word? Soothsayer? Is that someone who tells the future?
I think so.
I'm not clairvoyant. I can't tell the future, but I know that it's very, very, very easy to pitch a simple game, regardless of the depth of the game. And depth and simplicity are not two sides of the same spectrum. Are we agreed on that?
Yes, absolutely.
I was talking about this with Alex Cutler, a friend of the podcast, this morning. Actually, we had a call, and I was telling him that like one nice thing about designing simple games is that a publisher knows, like, at this point, a lot of publishers will look at a lot of my games, partially because I've had some success, but mostly because if I've pitched to them before, they know within a minute they'll be making interesting decisions. And I talked about a little bit on Tim Armstrong and I in the previous episode talked about this. We touched on this, but I really wanted to dive into this idea of like when I'm pitching a game, typically, and I'm talking light games again, like I'm sort of unfairly biased towards party games. I'll give you a really concrete example. On the last day of Origins, a game that Alex and I had been working on came together. Like it had been kind of working. It just really clicked. I was really happy with it. So I just walked over to Joe from Allplay, who I know I have a relationship. Not other people can't do this. Unfair advantage, etc. Unhelpful advice. And I was just like, Joe, can I show you something? And he was in the middle of something. He was like, yeah, because he knew within 2 minutes he would be playing the game, and within 5 minutes he would have made his decision. As opposed to within 5 minutes he might have finished hearing the explanation. Within half an hour he might be playing the game, and within and again, I realize it's biased towards party games, but I have some examples that kind of illustrate why this applies to all games. All making sense?
I'm on board.
Okay, so like I said, this is largely, I'm just going to share my screen. This is largely in response to some prototypes that I saw, which I'm not going to show. So instead, I'm going to pull up some of my old prototypes. So
You just assume we're all flawless and elegant?
They were. So this was a game. This was a game called Timeline.
Okay, sorry, you're showing me just you hanging out with our close personal friend Alex Horn for a minute there.
What? No. I'm showing you a game. What are you talking about? So this is a game that was called Timeline, and it was an absolute disaster. It never worked. I played it way too much. This was literally like one of the first 10 games I ever made, so it is a piece of trash. And this was a single card. AJ, are you able to describe what you see for the listeners?
So each card has a name. Some of them are duplicated with different abilities on them. So I guess that means the technology could be different from thing to thing. There's an icon that seems to represent the specific named thing. So if there's 2 space flights, then they're using the same one. Oh, but there's some with different names too. Okay, so like placeholder art icon. You've got some squares with icons on them. You've got a type, invention, and then you've got subtypes, technology or financial, stuff like that. And you've got an enter play ability and a while it's in play ability, and both of those have various things.
Exit abilities too.
Yep, you've numbered each card, which is nice to keep track of. And then there's something at the bottom that's a little hard to make out. I think it's another subtype or something.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you. AJ, from what you can see of these cards, how does this game play?
I assume that it's something along the lines of you play the card, you do what it says on the enter ability, and it stays in play, giving you the passive, and some of those effects are going to advance the cube along the track, and when you hit the bonuses that are the icons that are on the track, you take those actions, and then you get something for going to the end? Something like that?
That is a completely reasonable and utterly incorrect guess. This game was absurd. You had, I think, at least 4, possibly 10 decks of cards in front of you, and you constantly had to shuffle them. Every time you added a card to a deck, you had to shuffle that deck. And the idea was that it was a timeline, and so you were trying to like go to a certain part of the timeline. So those icons, the castle and the little guys meant to be the Renaissance, then the Industrial Age, then the Space Age. Those were the eras in which that card could exist, and it was a mess. All kinds of stuff happening. So I'm going to contrast that with a very, very recent game of mine. And again, I just want you to describe what's on the card.
Okay. So I see the entire thing is covered head to toe in text and iconography. It's self-referential. There's a flow chart overlapping the text.
This is called Things in Rings in Rings in Rings in Rings in Rings, and it's gonna set the world on fire.
So what I see is what looks like cards that have 4 of the same icon on it, or some sort of scoring icon on it. So maybe the front is a certain number of insects of a given type, and the back is 1/ a grayed out version of that. So probably 1 point per those things that you have, something like that.
Here's another one. This with the red outline is one card.
This one literally has a bird and a bee on it. So this is a not safe for work game, clearly. And then on a different card, there's 2 butterflies. So I'm guessing it's...
that's two sides of the same card.
Gotcha.
And it's a little unfair to ask you how this one plays because you literally don't possibly have enough information. But
is it like a Captain Flip type thing?
I've never played Captain Flip, but probably
you should play it. It's so good.
Yeah, it's on my list. I saw a lot of people playing it at Origins. The way this game works is you draw a card and you put it either so that, in this case, the butterflies are facing you and the bee and the bird are facing your opponent, or the other way around. And sometimes, like you said, there is scoring on the card, so it's either I get 4 bees and you get 1 point per bee, or I get 1 point per bee and you get 4 bees. And that is 90% of the game. And again, this is not really fair because the other one was like meant to be a midweight Euro, instead it was a midweight disaster. And this one is a fairly light game. But I've found increasingly, and this is kind of a rubric that I use in my design now. I'm going to give you 2 different examples. When the cards are getting simpler, the game gets better. And again, that sounds so obvious, but let me give you a really clear-cut example. Is this the right one? Yes. Okay, so I had a game come out from Button Shy last year called Ransom. And I'm just going to set it up so that there is 1 card on the screen. AJ, what can you see on this card?
So the corners of the card have letters. There's an X and a TH, and then and they're on the left side and the right side mirrored, as in if you fanned out the cards in your hand, you'd be able to see the X and the TH. And then in the middle of the card, in much larger font, is the X and the TH. I'm guessing you play it to create words, and you can tell what the letters are without having to worry about them being in your hand because you'd be covering them up. And there's also 2 stars in the middle, which I'm guessing is how many points you get for using the letters successfully. Am I in the right ballpark?
Yep, absolutely. That was draft 1 of the game. This is what the final draft and also what I pitched looked like. I can't make this have one card on it, but again, can you?
I can see it.
Can you describe what you can see here?
There's 1 letter with the reference on the left and the right corners, again, in case it's faded in your hand. So all there is 1 letter now instead of 2 letters and the scoring.
I kid you not, exact same game. No mechanical change, except the other one, when you drew a card, you would choose whether it was the X or the TH. Either way, it was worth 2 points. This is the exact same game, but I cut that choice. I cut the alternate points. Every card's just worth 1 point now. And exact same game, but you know, which one of those 2 AJ is going to get signed?
Yeah, for sure. And it's worth noting that in both of those cases, they were both on the childishly simple end of things. I could tell you how to play just by looking at 1 component. How many games can you say that about, right? But like you said, as soon as you have just the 1 letter, that's so much less complexity and so much more focusing on the doing of the thing instead of how to do the thing.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I consider myself as a designer very good at, is just being like, okay, this idea that we have, how can we boil it down? How can we simplify it? And the first step that I take is just removing information, because I think we've talked about this before. If I get a big pile of information, I have to process it. I can't just be like, well, I won't worry about that for now. If I see text, I have to read it. So those cards I showed you earlier, the utterly revolting... where were they? My computer's frozen up, so I can't show you. But the cards I showed you earlier, here we go. Like, if this is in front of me, I'm reading everything here at all times, and I get overwhelmed. And people, I play games with a girlfriend, and she loves, like me, kind of icon-driven games, because same thing. If she has this text, I read it all at once. I glance at this, and I'm trying to absorb every single word at the same time, which is insane, but also why I read so fast. AJ has a running sort of, would you call it a peeve, an observation about how fast I read?
Observation. I'm not annoyed by it. It's just shocking and impressive. I'll literally spend like 5 minutes typing out a big, long, multi-paragraph thought on one of our games, hit enter. I start typing like literally a one sentence, like, oh, and also this. And before I've typed that one sentence, and I'm not a slow typist, Peter has already read it and sent me a reply.
Yeah, I am just very, very fast with reading. Whereas my girlfriend, who is smarter than me, doesn't read as fast as I am. So this, she still has to absorb, but she has to do it word by word. And this is just crazy overwhelming for her. And it's overwhelming for me for different reasons. And even this. So the one that I was saying with the letters, I made this game, I pulled it into TTS, and as soon as I drew, like, a hand would look like this. So a hand would have, in this case, VKJX or THNDSTNT. Yeah, and immediately I'm overwhelmed. Like, it's so busy. Yeah, so maybe this episode is more about busyness. But I'm just going to keep going through examples, and we'll pull stuff out of it as we can.
Yeah, I think there's an element of it where it's like visual noise. There's an element of it where it's the rules complexity that you have to keep in your brain. There's there's
processing power required. Yeah.
Yeah, basically what we're talking about here is like how much effort, how much work is there in order to play the game. And you want that to be as close to nothing as possible, because the less brain space people waste on the having to do the work, the more they can spend on the strategy. I was just talking to someone recently in the Discord about how I find in general heavy Euros take up tons and tons of my brain space just keeping all the complex and abstract rules in my head, and it means that I can't really enjoy the game. Whereas something like Twad Imperium is longer and not a simple game by any stretch of the imagination, but comparatively to a lot of heavy Euros, I find that the parts that are elegant about it do so much of so much of what you have to consider that it frees up my brain space to be able to strategize in this also heavy game.
Yeah, and that's sort of the crux of it, is that you want people's processing power, and we're making generalizations, and I'm actually going to name some exceptions. You want people's processing power to be in playing the game, not understanding the game. You want the game elements and the goal, etc., to be childishly simple, so that people can then skip processing that and get straight to the meat of it. I'm going to give you a really recent example from one of my games. This is a game I'm working on called Tiny Folk Cafe. AJ, what do you see here from this very adorable little deck?
I see some very cute little animals with nice big eyes. I see they've got, many of them have big icons on them that are like coffee or coins, stuff like that. And then there's some text, end of game, end of round, gain VP, do this action. And then there's also occasionally an icon beside those ones, which I'm guessing is like, if you do this here, or if you also have this card in your tableau, something like that, then you get that bonus.
Very close. It's actually when you activate this space, or at the end of round, just has its own little icon.
Gotcha.
So you've described not you've described. So this is the same game I was saying earlier with the artifacts that you buy for the little characters. You can tell from this card sort of what it does. The icon in the top left is actually the cost per round, which is not obvious from the card, but and so different bugs and different little mammals have different costs per round. I made one very minor update to this game recently, and again, similar to that letter example I was giving earlier, I just immediately liked the game more and found it easier to pass. So you'll see what the difference is straight away.
I was really hoping it would just be art and literally nothing else. So the coffee and the coin icons are no longer on the cards. It is just the cute animal and then their ability at the bottom.
I don't know about you, but this makes this somehow twice as easy to read for me. There's just something that cleans it up and makes me understand it better. And I'll explain the rule difference, but I want to hear your thought first.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said about just aesthetics. It is very beautiful looking at a nice piece of art and then separately at the bottom, the ability, and you don't have to look at anything else. As soon as you have icons and other little things popping up all around it, it gets very visually busy and less pleasant. I think this is something that happens a lot on Magic cards. If you look at a Magic card, it's like here's the trademark, here's the artist, here's the
Yeah.
creature type line, here's the mana cost, here's like 5 different elements of the frame, here's the
Again, to go back to my earlier example, that's what it feels like.
Exactly. Whereas looking at something like this, it's just visually very pleasing to me and doesn't trigger any of the responses of like, oh, look at all this text and look at all this busyness that I have to process.
So the rule change is just, instead of having to pay that specific thing, you can pay anything. So it's such a minor change, but the second I took that off the cards, I felt like a layer of pressure had been taken off me. It's such a visceral feeling for me. I don't know if you get this too. I know in our game, the game that we never stop talking about, Pesticide. that's the new code name for the game.
I unironically want to use that. It's silly, but it's so fun.
The bug game. By the way, I got more gossip. Do you remember like 2 years ago where every example was Critter Kitchen? And I was like, AJ, you will understand when we get there. I think we're there. Like, it's so much of our brain space. It's impossible to talk about games without bringing it up.
It's true, but to be fair, I think you're the one who keeps bringing it up again. I don't know if I'm bringing it up that often, but maybe I am.
Maybe it's just me.
I'm not very self-aware. Who knows?
So in our game, which I've actually got some examples of, I work so hard to just cut cards from text. Straight after this call, we're going to do a playtest, and it's a brand new change to a bunch of stuff where I haven't gone through and tidied up the text yet. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, it's so ugly. There's so much text. But I just want to get it to the table as quickly as possible and know we can deal with it. But then I will meticulously cut as much text as possible whenever I can. I'm gonna skip to a published game. Have you played Far Away?
I have. Excellent game.
I love it.
I 180'd on that one so hard.
Oh, really? That's me in Istanbul. I didn't like Istanbul for a while. I guess I 360'd. I loved it, then I hated it, then I loved it again. So Far Away, I would say, is a decently crunchy game. I think you'd agree.
Oh, yes, certainly.
It is a brain burner. And
that is why I bounced off of it initially, because it was too crunchy. Do you want to describe the rules quickly to show people like...
Okay, I'll describe the very basic, which is that every turn you're just going to play one card until you have 8 cards. So on the screen right now, there's an example of 8 cards. Then the last thing that happens at the game is you flip all... You play them in order sequentially. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At the end of the game, you flip all the cards you've played face down and you score them in reverse order. So you flip up the 8th card, and that scores only considering the icons it can see at that moment. Then the 7th card, that one considers only the icons it can see, which includes the 8th card. So normally you build up resources and then get a goal that achieves those resources. This game says get a goal, then build up those resources. And it's trippy. Like, it is a mind-wrecking game. I love it. It was my game of the year last year. That and Fromage are tied for my game of 2024. I really liked both of them. And so I was trying to think of like crunchy small box games, and I realized that one is such a perfect example. This is let's go with this one. This is about as complex as a card gets. This one right here. AJ, what can we see on this card? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of information, five pieces of information. What can we see here?
I was about to say, how dare you say there's 4?
There's 6. There's technically 6.
So, piece of information number 1, we have what the number of the card is, which is initiative value for order of picking your next card. When you play a card, you also get to take a new card and add it to your hand for a future round. That's also relevant because if you go up in number, then you get a bonus, which is the reason why you wouldn't just play all the all the objective cards first. So anyway, it's got those. It's also a nighttime card.
Go ahead. Oh, no, you would play the objective cards first. It's so backwards. It genuinely threw me.
Well, it pulls you in both directions, right? Because a lot of the resource cards are low number, so you want to play them early and build up to the ones that do things. Anyway, so it's got that number. It has a suit on it that is nighttime, which is very subtle. It's just like a highlight around the number, but it is a thing that some cards care about.
It's in the art too. Once you start to look for it, it's very clearly differentiated in-game between day and night.
There's also a resource it provides, and I don't know if you know this, but that resource is also in the art in every one of these cards somewhere. Sometimes it's very subtle.
I did not know that. That's so cool.
There's a
there he is. He's hiding.
There's a little requirement, which is if you have these particular resources, then there's an ability at the bottom, and that ability turns on. So then there's the ability that turns on, and then there's a suit for the card, which is just the color of it, red, green, blue, whatever.
And what's really clever here is that, firstly, at a glance, like AJ had to describe it with lots of words because that's the, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But at a glance, like, this is immediately processable. If you can understand that the resources you need before you unlock the other thing, which I think they've graphically done very well. Like, I think this game is sublime on pretty much every level. So there's nothing here you don't need to understand at a glance, that you can't understand at a glance. Go ahead.
Exactly. So I think just building off that point, the icon that tells you it's nighttime that I said, that is just the circle around the number has a different thing on it. When you glance at this card, if you don't know how to play, it doesn't register in your brain as information you have to parse because you don't realize it's information until something tells you it. Same with the color of the card. The color of the card,
that's
the
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
It's green, and that doesn't matter until something says it does. So again, doesn't take up any information. So realistically, if you're just sitting down and taking a look at it, it's got 4, not 6, like you said in the beginning, and even then, like those are 4 simple pieces of information that feel very intuitive. And the thing is, like with some of these, like I was saying before, heavy Euros, you have to keep so many different things in your mind. With this game, if you play down a card and it has a requirement, you don't need to really care that much about it. That's future use problem to figure out how to get the resources down eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so clever. So this card on the left actually does. Oh no, it's still 5, isn't it? But like there are cards like this one has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of information, I suppose. But it does, like, this is about as simple as a card as you can get, and the complexity of the game comes not from understanding what a card does, which I really think you can just do at a glance, but from sequencing and chaining and stuff like that. And so this is a good example of a game that isn't itself as a game childishly simple. Like, you bounce off this because it is so inherently unintuitive, but every element of it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
I call this type of game designer porn, where it's just so unbelievably clever, but in like in a way where everything connects to each other in sort of, I guess the Baba is you sort of a way, where you can just tell that the designer at the end is like cracking their knuckles and like, oh yeah, look at how every single piece ties into each other and stuff. And it's just so clever, every little thing. Oh, there's tension here and tension the other way and tension this way.
Okay, I don't remember what this one is, so let's open it up and find out. Oh, okay, so I said that I didn't want to bully any particular games. So this was by someone who I met 10 years ago in another country, and I don't think he does game design anymore.
Because you bullied them.
Because I bullied them. So he had a game that... Okay, AJ, you're... I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit here. He had a game that I really liked, but I didn't like how complex his arrangement of information was. This is me cleaning it up. This is you cleaning it up? Yes, there we go. That's the reaction I was expecting. So he had a game where I was like, this is great. And this was literally 10 years ago. I was just like, this is amazing. The problem with this game, said confident idiot young Peter, is that the information isn't presented clearly, and so I cleaned it up. AJ, what without going into detail at all, because this is not a Soul Sheet episode, what can you see right now?
A nightmarish amount of information. There's text, there's icons, there's 5 different rows with 2 different lines of abilities and a chaining an arrow between them on the left. In the middle, there's 3 different sections with different actions on them. And then on the right, there's some sort of reference with like 8, 10 more lines of
that's all the different units you could have.
Oh, this is dizzying. We're gonna need a nap after reading this.
So I'm bullying myself more than the design. I think the design was just way too convoluted in the way that most first designs are. But I thought this is a really good example of a game where, had this been sat down in front of me at Origins, at a glance, I'm sort of like, this is not getting published, which is maybe unfair, but you see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So we did a mini-sode once about zebras and horses. Do you remember?
I was wondering if you'd bring that up this conversation. If you weren't, I was going to.
Yeah. So basically, this game, and again, I only really remember what you can see here, had all these different units that were just subtly different. So like, there's a pawn, Pawn, I have an accent, that when you put a ring on it, it got 1 more health and 1 more defense and 2 more attack and 1 more movement. And it's just like, just pick a number and do that. Like, oh, it's got a ring on it? Cool. Every number is increased by 1. Like, all its move is increased by 1, all its attack, or just one thing. But don't make every little part of it subtly different to every little part. And then there were scouts and towers and barracks and huts and towers, barracks, huts, and mines, and those were all different types of buildings that do these subtly different things. And it's just so much. It's just so much. Mm-hmm. And this is what I mean when I say like, and he wasn't going for childishly simple, but you can create so much depth and strategy without going to complexity. I mentioned earlier that I was going to give an exception. There is a type of gamer. And I definitely was like this in the past, who parsing something complicated, Parsing, I have an accent, parsing something complex is very satisfying. When I was in high school, I was in a play, and I put in my like a little audition form, because apparently we filled out audition forms, that I liked learning lines, because I did. It's satisfying to me to, at the end, have a bunch of lines memorized. So I got not only a role, I also got understudy for the main role. I really shot myself in the foot there. Yeah, it was great. Brag time. Are you ready for brag o'clock, Brandon?
Heck yeah.
I was so good as the understudy, they actually gave me one of the main performances. So that was nice for me.
Oh, that's great.
And so, like, there is a satisfaction in being like, oh, this is a horribly overwhelming system, but I'm going to learn it. Virgin Queen was that for my playing group back in Melbourne. We bought and learned Virgin Queen after seeing the Shut Up and Sit Down review, where they were like, we tried this game 3 times, we kept on bouncing off it was just too much, and we were like, oh, a challenge, you say? I wouldn't recommend taking that as a design challenge, but there is definitely a type of player who likes the challenge of that. I just don't think it's the best way into publication or the best move for most games. That's all my disclaimers.
I'm gonna risk alienating a bunch of our audience here. I think that the type of gamer that is interested in like the really big, heavy, super complex games. I'm painting with very broad strokes. It's in everyone.
I found a dead bug in my water. That's why I made that face.
Oh, jeez. I thought he was just like, he's talking about...
It's a lot of dead bugs. Oh my goodness.
What is going on?
I've been away for a month, and so my water has apparently become a breeding ground for bugs.
Do you just leave the water there the entire time?
I might have. It's in a bottle. Like, it's in a sealed bottle.
That's really weird.
Yeah, that is strange. Anyway, lots and lots of bugs. So, I'm going to stop drinking.
Fun problems. The problems of bugs.
That's what our game should be called. Bug problems. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Please start your thought again, and I will not be consuming dead insects as you do.
So I think with...
I just found one in my mouth. Okay, I can hear you. I'm going to go wash my mouth out while you talk.
This is all just him trying to get away from responsibility of me making fun of people or whatever. So I think with really heavy games, people who tend to really like heavy games, I think they put a bit more value on the complexity of the game, making the game more deep. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I see often that same type of gamer, again, being very broad and general here, and not everyone, obviously. But I see a lot of those types of gamers playing lighter games, and they'll be like, oh, this game is like so simple, there's no strategy to it, whatever. But I think there's a lot of micro edges you can get in games. And that's something that comes up a lot in childishly simple games. Games where you're playing something and you're like, how is there even any decisions to make, or how is there even any depth here? And then if you look really closely, you start to see, there's all these little threads I can pull at. Pokemon Pocket's a digital CCG that I tried a little bit of. And most of the time, the game plays itself. It's once you have the deck built and you're actually in game, there's very few meaningful decisions you make, but there are some. Of course, if you can take out an opponent's sky, you want to do that. But if you have a bunch of cards in hand, your opponent might play a red card, and that will take away all your cards, basically. And if you have a weak Pokemon in the back, then they could play, I think it was a Jessica, to like swap it out and take the hit off of them. So sometimes you want to hold the cards in hand and not play them out, because then they can get swapped in and instantly killed. And those types of little micro edges of being able to say, this is a really simple system, but there's something else in here that I can find, is something that I typically find heavy gamers don't look for. And what they want, and it's fine, you can play whatever you want, but what they want is something that's got a lot of different systems to mess around with. And I understand the appeal of trying to mess around with these different systems and see how they interact. There's definitely a satisfaction in that. But yeah, just trying to tie it back into the childishly simple. I think that
yeah, for sure.
There's a lot there.
That actually leads perfectly into another example I have. So let me share my screen again. So you might not remember this, but we played this together once. You might recognize it.
I have perfect memory, and that is why I remember this game. Tug's Collar.
This is one of my top 5 games of all time. This is Feast for Odin. And a Feast for Odin is a 2-hour heavy Euro. I think it's fair to describe it that way. It's sort of almost like famous for being wide, not deep. It's in some ways the epitome of what you're describing, where there's just a bunch of different systems that interact. And so this game has a trading subsystem, a hunting subsystem, a gathering subsystem, and a farming, animal breeding, creating goods from farm, like a raiding, and then separate to the raiding an exploration, and separate to the raiding and exploration the hunting kind of has some overlap but not full overlap. And on top of that, you're this is the game that Patchwork was spun out of, because he has this like polyomino game that he was like, this could be its own thing, and made the childishly simple Patchwork out of this game. So Patchwork, a much more complicated version of Patchwork, is one of the subsystems in this game.
Right.
And it's a worker placement game where every space is either 1, 2, 3, or 4 workers, and if you use 3 or 4 workers, they have different bonuses that they give you, and. This is so on screen right now is the main board. It is, I believe, 70 spaces. It is a worker placement game where there are 70 worker placements you can go to. Now, I'm actually not using this as a counter to Childishly Simple. I'm using this as what I think is a good example of the principles being executed. Obviously, a Feast for Odin is not Childishly Simple. It would be absurd to call it that. Do you remember much of your playthrough of it?
A little bit. Not much.
I remember you won. But what it does, and I'm just going to zoom in on some spaces here, is let's go down to where I normally start.
You can't use all of them. There's restrictions on it to some extent, and that limits.
You only have X workers, and the first column costs 1, the second costs 2, the third costs 3, and the fourth costs 4. So it's not that you can't use all of them. It's just that you literally can't. Not because of some second rule, just because you don't have enough workers for it.
Right.
So you say like 70 spaces. That's absurd. This space is take a 2x2 orange and a coin. That space in isolation is childishly simple.
Yeah.
The next one is take a 3x1 orange and a 3x1 red and a coin. The next one is take a 3x3 orange, a 2x1 green, a coin, and a 4x1 red. Like, those spaces are dead simple. They get a little more complex. This is take 1, 2, or 3 milk if you have 1, 2, or 3 cows. This is take 2 reds and 1 and 2 coins, etc. Like, yes, this is as a game not childishly simple, but all of these spaces that I'm describing are. And I see some people trying to make, including probably past Peter, trying to make a Feast for Odin game where they're like, okay, the trick to Feast for Odin is that it's very complex, so everything you do has to be very complex. I'm sure you've played prototypes like this as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to try and find, like, the most complex space on here. Oh, it barely exists. Like, these aren't that self-evident to look at, so it kind of defeats the self-evident point. But, like, once... Like, I've taught this game, and you can teach this game in... I don't remember how long it took me to teach you, but, like, maybe 20 minutes, which is, again, not 30 seconds. But for the amount of playability that this game has, like... A 20-minute teach is not bad, and it really helps that the first thing that happens is you look at this board, you get overwhelmed, and then I teach you, and the hunting has a subsystem. That is definitely complicated. almost everything else that is currently on screen is just take the thing that it says. If it says like pay your money, then it's pay your money and take that thing. If it says 1, 2, 3 milk from 1, 2, 3 cows, it means you have to have the cows. But like they're all very, very, very simple conversions, and similar to the point that you were making earlier in the episode, the complexity doesn't come from the complexity of the actions. The actions are all really, really simple. It's about the sequencing and the interaction and the like, okay, I really want to maximize this space, so I should try to have 3 cows. How can I get cows? Oh, this space is just buy a cow for 3 coins. Okay, how can I get coins? It's that backwards layering where no step of the process is particularly complex, but by sequencing like a bunch of them, then you start to hit complexity. Is this making sense? Is this helpful?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just very important for us to differentiate between when we're saying we're looking for something that is a childishly simple game or a childishly simple mechanic, and when we're talking about a game that isn't childishly simple, but is elegant for its weight class. Right?
Yeah, and I think that the reason it's elegant for its weight class is that it's taking that principle not for the game as a whole, but for specific elements.
Right. And to use Twilight Imperium as another example, this is something where I've taught a lot of people Twilight Imperium. A lot of people Twilight Imperium. And whenever they sit down, they're always really intimidated at the complexity of it. I'm like, guys, I promise you, it is not as bad as you think. Like, on your turn, do one action. What's an action? Well, you can spend this action token, you can place it on the board, and then just move anyone you want to that space, as long as they have the movement for it. Or, you can put it down and build something. Or if your card says, as an action, do this, that just means do what it says on the card. Like, so much of that game is so simple. And yes, there's, a bunch of different types of units with different powers and stuff. But in terms of a lot of the mental space that takes up with players, they don't have to memorize every single stat of every single unit at all times. They're just like, okay, I'm in a combat. What does this guy do again? Oh yeah, he hits this thing first. And so I feel like there's absolutely an element of childishly simple to Twilight Imperium, at least the 4th edition.
No, I absolutely agree. One of the cleverest little systems is that you put an action spot token on, you move everyone in, and it also traps them there. You can't move out of a system that has an action token. And what that does is it stops you from doing multiple moves without ever having a rule saying, hey, you can't do multiple moves. It's so clever. I'm gonna compliment Alex Cutler, which is horrible, and I apologize in advance. He's got a great brain for coming up with these systems. Like he's way better than I am at coming up with a system where you're like, oh, that's really clever and simple and intuitive. That's one of the reasons I love working with him. Okay, let me give you some more examples because I pulled up a bunch of them. Oops, that's the after.
Sure. I've got some too if you want at some point, but happy to keep going with yours.
I'm just gonna go from the top of my little thing here.
Sure.
So this is my 3-hour Euro. This is coming out from Cardboard Alchemy at some point, and this is like one of the main boards of the 3-hour Euro, and yet. At a glance, AJ, you've never played this game. Oh, maybe you've played this game once? I don't think you've ever played this game.
Is this Baba Yaga?
No, this is...
I was like, okay,
currently...
no. It's like, unless it changed a lot, but... but I saw like feathers and witch hats and stuff like that. I wasn't sure. Keep going.
I will tell you, this is the goal board, and you start here. From that alone, explain to me how this game works.
So I assume as you complete objectives or score points, whatever the equivalent type of thing is, you move along a path of squares. So there's squares with different things on them, gems, feathers, hats, gold coins, stuff like that. I'm guessing for each one of those points that you get to move along the pathways that are connecting those ones, and you get whatever bonus you land on, and ultimately you'll win the game by getting all the way to the other side. How'd I do?
Almost. This is the goal board, so this is what you pay. But yes, other than that, like exactly that. So,
Gotcha.
So what's the difference between, say, this space here, which has two star, 2 water, and 2 hands, versus this space here, which just has 2 leaves?
I can't see where you're gesturing on the computer, so just skip to telling us maybe.
So these ones are have. If they have the hand, you have to have them to enter that room. Otherwise, you have to pay them, and that's it. Like. This
Gotcha.
is the crux of the game. This is where most of your attention is going to be. And it's very directly that thing I was saying from Feast for Odin, where it's like, okay, well, I want to have these 3 red, but first I want to have the 2 green, or I could actually skip paying the 2 green by just having 2 spells. And if I get, you know what I mean, like it does exactly that thing in what I think is a very beautifully simple way. The other half of your board is this, and this one is admittedly more complex. I'm not saying that this is like a zero thing, but similar to what you were saying with Faraway, all of these spaces right at the start of the game are covered up. And so only when you build these buildings... can you describe what we're seeing for the listeners?
Yeah. Is this your roguelike, by the way?
No, this is a 3-hour Euro that Alex and I have been working on for a few years.
Okay, so it looks like there's a sort of a town here with some houses at the bottom with some circular, looks like kind of worker placement spots. There's some castles in the middle with some various icons. It says Adventurers Guild, start the game with one randomly drawn thing. And then it's got some reference of you can spend, I assume, whatever that is, blue fire, in order to take a few different actions. Whenever you advance on that, you can spend rope to do that. Okay.
So, yes.
I would not describe this as childishly simple by any means.
No, and I'm definitely not trying to. But this is similar to what you were saying with Faraway, where at the start of the game, everything except for the bottom left 4 circles and the top text is covered up. So you just don't have to worry about any of that at the start of the game. And then as you go, you start to unlock more abilities and more inventory space. All these circles, they're just inventory space. So that's where you keep stuff. All these icons in the middle row, that's just what you get when you build that building. Sort of like Scythe, where when you build something, you get a thing, or Terra Mystica. You build it, you get it. That's all those are. And then the top are the most complex thing on this whole sheet, which is they are spells, and you put a wizard there, and you get to turn rope into resources, or fight a monster, or get a rope. And so this is another example of not childishly simple at a glance, but partitioned in such a way that you can ignore most of it, and the bits that you do have to understand are like, you put a wizard there, you get a rope. Like, I've never had a player confused by like, but how do I get a rope? What do I put there? Like, it's just very, very simple. For the weight class. And sorry, again, context. This is a 3-hour Euro.
Right.
This is not far away. I've got a few more examples. This is a game of mine called Da Vinci's Workshop. You draft a card each turn. Oh, where is it? And the cards look like this. So they're very busy with the art a little bit, but if you ignore the art, it's got a cost up the top, and then it's got what it does. Let me find a different page. Yeah, it's got a cost, and then it's got what it does, and it has these 2 like little gentlemen at the bottom, and that's it. And again, this is a 40-minute Euro. On your turn, you take one of these cards, and if you can pay for it, you pay for it. If you can't, you pay for it later. And it's just very few elements on a card.
Yeah.
I have. You know this one. So this is our game. Do I have the page that I want? So these are the cards for our games. Oh yeah, I wanted to bring this up because this is not in it anymore, this particular faction, but these are just pure text cards that have more text than I would like them to have. And in fact, I don't think any of the cards of the game currently have this much text unless I'm misremembering it, something.
Definitely not as much as Royal Jelly. That's pretty verbose.
That is very verbose. But these cards, and this was a very conscious choice, and this ties into what you were saying earlier, these cards are all, you do exactly this. You fly, then attack with a warrior bee. There's no take 3 action points, and with those action points you can do this. They are just like, if you play Drone Strike, you fly, then attack with a warrior bee, and that's it. We actually formatted this differently so that nowadays it would be even shorter. But I think that's an important thing with the Childish Simply is like, just when you can cut choices. Now, you and I have been in the process of putting a bunch of choices back into the game because we need them. I don't love that we're doing that. At one point, we should do a pass and see if we can cut any of those. But
for sure,
the simplicity of what does a card do? It does exactly this and nothing else. These are the action tiles of the game.
As soon as you can offload rules from structure onto the content, that's a great way to make it childishly simple. Yes, the rules are still there. Yes, someone will have to read it at some point. But if you have to explain all these different things that go along with playing a card, that's a lot of extra brain space they have to spend on it. Whereas if you say, play the card, do what it says, they just have to do what it says. And we also didn't put any iconography on the game or anything, so there's nothing you have to cross-reference. There are keywords for sure, but the keywords are also, I would argue, childishly simple. What does fly do? You pick up your person, you place them anywhere you want. What does jump do? You jump over a space. What does move do? You move one space. Like it's very intuitive abilities.
Yeah, this is our 2-player dueling game, and again, I think today it's a little bit less complex than this, but even this isn't that bad.
And what you're seeing on screen, by the way, I'll just read out one example here. Play any number of cards, then draw 2 cards. That is an example of an entire player turn. I'll give you the most complex one I see here. Move each unit 2. Drones with no pollen may fly to a flower instead.
Or do you know what that tells me, AJ?
What?
This is pre-jump.
Well, I don't think it's pre-jump, but I think it's pre the bees having jump by default.
Right. No, but the fact that we have move 2, we don't have move 2 on a single card in the game anymore.
We did have jump and move 2 at a point, but then we were like, let's just cut that, which is a great example of childishly simple. Moving is always just a move. Jump is always jump over.
Oh, yeah,
is your computer falling apart?
No. Okay, so...
Oh no, now we have to see you and Alex Horn again.
Here's what I did, AJ. So I got a little treat for you. Actually, no, first of all, I'll just quickly show you this one. So this is Scythe, which I assume you've played, most people have played.
Uh-huh.
So this is an action board on Scythe, and this is, I would say, like a 90-minute Euro, 2-hour Euro, something along those lines.
Yeah,
Maybe a
for
little
sure.
bit shorter.
Isn't it 113 minutes exactly as per the box?
Yeah, that's right. 112 minutes. I'm sorry. How dare I forget that? And now the complexity of Scythe comes from the fact that so I'm showing you a player board from Scythe where at the top it has pay, and then the action that you do, and at the bottom it has pay and the thing that you do. So it's split into 4 columns. Each column has a pay action at the top and a pay action down the bottom. And on your turn, you just activate a whole thing. So you pay, you produce, you pay, you deploy. And the complexity in Scythe, I think, almost unnecessarily, and I think if he was to do it today, he'd do it differently, is that each of these 4 things at the bottom work zebra and horse slightly differently in a way that's really annoying to teach. But this is so simple. Go ahead.
Just because we didn't, I don't think, explicitly define it earlier in case someone missed it.
Yes.
Zebra and horse, or zebra and horse, as Peter says, just means 2 things in the game that are very, very similar and have one tiny difference that is very easy for people to miss. Generally speaking, do not try and have zebras and horses. Like we just said with the move 2 versus jump, jumping is moving 2, but over people. Those are 2 extremely similar things. It's confusing to players. It's reasonable to cut.
The reason to avoid it is the metaphor is that I know how horses work, let me jump on this stripy horse. No, turns out you don't know how horses work. Turns out you know how horses work, and this thing that looks very, 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 very similar to a horse, you assume you know how it works. And that's unfair as a game designer to be like, haha, you thought you knew what you were doing? Well, I have tricked you. So in Scythe, you just pay the thing it says to pay, you get the thing that it shows in icons, and then you pay the thing it says to pay, and you get the thing it shows in icons. And it's really so clean. This is the thing that impresses me about Scythe the most, is that on a turn, I'm going to do exactly this string of things, and yet it's such a deep game, or such a replayable game anyway.
It is very visually busy, going back to that sort of metric, these cards especially, but it is a very simple thing. You pay what it says, you get what it says. Once you learn the iconography, it's not so bad for sure.
Yeah, the worst thing about it is that upgrades work differently to deployments, work differently to builds, work differently to enlist. And it's a 10-year-old design. I'll cut it some slack. Okay, AJ, I went on to BGG, and I worked out how to find the heaviest games.
Did you go by weight?
I did. Do you want to look at... now, I haven't played this game. Have you played this?
I can't see it yet. I have
It's
definitely
called
not played this.
Right.
No.
This is literally the top end, and I don't think it's literally the heaviest, but it's in the top... It's in the top 1% of most heavy games easily. Of all games ever designed. And yet, this, from what I could tell, I haven't played this game, this is the central board. It's pretty clean. Like it definitely looks busy, but once you start looking at it, like
It's just tracks.
it's just tracks. And here's the thing that young Peter did. Do I have? I thought I saved this one, but I don't have it anywhere. No, I don't have it. Annoyingly. This is one I was going to show you earlier. The earlier version of this was so much more complex. I'm annoyed that I don't have it. I might pull it up later. So in Arkwright, like it's just tracks, and the tracks go up by one each time. And it's so tempting as a designer, for me anyway, maybe I'm alone in this, to be like, this track will go up by one, but then it'll have like a few, it'll be hopped, low weighted or high weighted, and have them go up at different numbers. And this is like just, in its own way, very, very clean. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm on board.
I don't know how to play this game. Oh. What the heck just happened? Can you still see me, hear me?
Yep.
Cool. My computer is set to go to sleep mode if I put my mouse in the bottom right corner, and I put my mouse in the bottom right corner, so everything shut down for a second. I don't know how to play this game, but at a glance, like I'm not intimidated by it. I know it's going to be heavy because of the rating, but it's not like terrifyingly heavy. And then these are the tokens that you get. Again, I have no idea how they work, but considering this is among the heaviest games in BGG, like that's no heavier. That's no more complex than a faraway card.
Yeah, and I want to really zero on this. I'm glad that you were bringing up heavier games that also have elements of being childishly simple, because that's something that really sticks with me. When people, oftentimes I'll play games with gamers and it'll be a very
used
heavy
as
game.
an excuse.
Yes, exactly. They'll be like, well, it's a heavy game, so it can have all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but does it need to? Would it not be a better game if it had all the depth and simply less complexity? And there was, I think, a great example of that is Cole Worley's, what's it called, Arcs? And now that you just bring up Arcs, comparatively to something like
that's
Root.
the trick. That's our main trick of the episode. Put Arc in your title.
For sure. So in Root, they're both good games, by the way. I'm a big fan of both of them, but in Root, it's got so much complexity on every one of the factions, and it's really, really dense to the point where if you're an opponent playing against someone and you haven't played that faction before, you realistically have absolutely no idea what they're capable of or what's going on over there. They could just as easily have nothing or be about to explode all over the board and win the game. It's really, really dizzying. And comparatively to Arcs, which is also an extremely well-reviewed game by Cole Worley, and also a fairly on the heavy side of games, like it's longer, it's not super light or anything, but it's so elegant, it's so easy to get into, and so much more accessible, and I don't think it came at a huge cost. Now, I've heard from a friend of the show, Jeff Fraser, that some of the more complex systems or things are in campaign or advanced content or whatever, but that's a great way to do it.
If you're going to have it, that's where you put it.
Exactly.
I learned this lesson with That Time You Killed Me, where originally I had everything in the box. Everything was just in the starting game, and it was impossible for humans to understand. I found what I was looking for. So this is a very early version of a game that was called Agricultist that I was working on. I worked on this for so long. And this is fine. It's just a lot of bits and a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff. I just don't like it that much. And so in different versions, I was just tweaking numbers and moving stuff around and trying different things. And then I eventually ended up here. Now this game never works. So this is not the king example, but I just cut all of it, and all that you needed was numbers 1 through 5. And this is actually just a turn reference. So on your turn, you do A, B, C. If I was making this today,
I'm interrupting just for a second. For audio listeners, it went from a bunch of...
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Went from a bunch of different versions that had a pentagram on it with a bunch of text and a bunch of different icons and tracks and stuff like that to basically just the pentagram. Very little else on there.
Yeah. And part of this was just cutting mechanics. And if I was doing it today, I would actually do it like this. And it's just so much more immediately at a glance understandable, you know?
Yeah.
Or less overwhelming, or go ahead.
I feel like we've been talking a lot though about high level. We want to do this. It is possible, and we're running a bit long on time. I want to machine gun through a bunch of examples of games that have at least an element of the childishly simple, so you can just have a bunch of tools in your toolbox. Nova Luna. The big takeaway from this one. Are you familiar with that game?
Haven't played it.
This is a multiplayer solitaire game, just drafting for interaction, but it's one of the best ones I've played. And part of that reason is the tiles that you draft are both recipes and used to fulfill recipes. So when you place it down, whatever suit is, whatever color, it's giving that color to adjacent tiles to complete their goals, but it also has requirements to complete its goal. And then there's more mechanics on top of that, but it's a very, very, very simple, elegant mechanic, and it does a great job of coupling together these two things. And just the concept of recipe and fulfillment being the same thing, excellent, I think, example of childishly simple. An example, I'm just going through a bunch of random things I've been pulling up during this. So for Blood Rage, we talked about this a few times, but the monsters in Blood Rage, what do they cost? Was their strength in combat? It's the same number. You don't have to keep track of two different things. So in terms of actionable advice for people here, couple together multiple things, make them mean the same thing, and it's going to take up much less mental space for players. Another example of that in a very different way is Air, Land, and Sea, one of my favorite games, one of the most elegant games I've played. And in that one, it's got a lot of similarities to poker, where each turn you're playing a card and you're doing an area control effectively over 3 different lanes. And of course, the highest number of 2 lanes wins the thing. Whoever goes first wins ties. And then the thing is you can retreat any turn instead of playing a card. Every card you play makes it more costly for the loser, and if you retreat early, then you might have had a chance. But if you thought that you were really far behind really quickly, then you can leave and not lose so many points. And there's also an element in that system too, where because you know that your opponent can retreat early and lose less points, that you want to push them into staying in early. So you might play differently so that you don't give away that you're winning, but that might also cost you some of your strength by not playing it out in the proper sequence. I'm just going to keep machine gunning, so feel free to interrupt me if you have thoughts.
I have a thought, but I can share it once your list is done. It doesn't relate to any specific examples, so I want to get through your list.
So Hive is a game where...
So I picked up my water and had this moment of checking for bugs.
So Hive is a game where it's an abstract strategy game, and the board is also the tiles. The tiles that you use to move around and attack with, like you would in, say, chess, is also the board. Imagine hex-shaped pawns and knights and everything, and as you play them, you are adding to the board and adding to the units that you can use on the board. Spectacularly.
You're almost rapid firing elegant mechanical hooks.
Yeah, I think of childishly simple in more complex games as elegance. Would you say that's not how you're thinking of them?
Oh no, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but that Hive one, that's a amazing hook. It's a component hook. It's a mechanical hook. Like the pitch. I watched a YouTuber called Wheezy Waiter, and I was watching a vlog from 10 years ago now, and he said that he was going over to his friends with Carcassonne, which he'd just discovered in 2015 or whatever, and he was so excited to show them because he was like, it's a board game where you build the board as you go. And I got introduced to Carcassonne so early that's not how I think of Carcassonne. But in terms of hook, and especially at the time it came out, that's absolutely why Carcassonne is the hit that it is. And so, again, I played Hive without ever thinking that's the hook. Like, the pieces are the board, or Carcassonne, you build the board as you go. And it's so simple and so clever. And now that they've done it, the rest of us can't do that as our hook. But it's just brilliant. Carry on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great example. It's so interesting going back to older games and trying to view them through the lens of which existed when they came out. Yeah,
it's like how Aliens would make Go episode almost.
Yeah. Jenga is absolutely a childishly simple game. A lot of dexterity ones are, but Jenga's I think the simplest. Pull out one, put it on top, knock it over, you lose. Right? Doesn't get cleaner than that. Blockus. Blockus is childishly simple. Each turn, play a piece. Can't touch anything of your color except corners. Can't play a piece, you're out. Amazingly childishly simple.
Yeah, 100%.
Onitama, I think, has a little bit of complexity, but just a tiny bit. I think the Onitama, basically you choose one of 2 cards, make the move that says on the card, swap that for the one in the middle, and then your opponent is going to do the same, picking one of their 2 and then swapping their card for the one that you just handed them. Spectacularly elegant and absolutely childishly simple. When you compare this to something like chess, obviously there's a lot of like cultural baggage with chess, or no, not baggage, but scaffolding that comes along with chess. Some familiarity, but try teaching a child chess versus trying to teach them onitama. It's night and day, absolutely night and day.
And onitama does the thing too of like, on the card there is one thing you can do. And a lesser designer would have been like, okay, so this card has two options, and it's just like, no, just everything is one thing. And it's so obvious when you say it and start doing it, but like I just really want to hammer that home. If you want your games to be easier to understand, make every card, every action, everything just one thing that you do.
So we were speaking about it earlier, Captain Flip. In Captain Flip, you draw a tile from the bag, you can flip it, haha, that's the name of the game. And then, regardless of which side's on, you're going to just place it in the lowest of one of your columns. That's it. The content of the game is equally simple, and the whole game, and that's another one of those ones, remember how I said earlier about how heavy gamers can often play light games and dismiss them? This is one with a lot of micro edges. A lot of people would sit down to this game and be like, well, it's just random, right? It's just luck. Oh, I got the thing I need or not. But there's so much of the game that's setting you up for success on future turns.
Seven Wonders Architects, exactly the same thing. And you can go on BGG right now into Seven Wonders Architects and see a bunch of people being like, oh yeah, I played it, it's just luck. And then people who have played like 500 games being like, what are you talking about? Like, play against me and I will destroy you. It's clearly not just luck.
That's awesome. This is an interesting example, I think. I'm curious if you'll agree. Inhuman Conditions has a bit too much rules cruft around the edges of it, but ultimately, 99% of the game, and 100% of the game once you've started, is just interviewer, ask questions. If they do something weird, stamp them robot. If they seem normal, stamp human. The other person on your side, you have a card. It either says human, in which case, just roleplay, or it says robot, in which case, it will have a restriction or an objective. Do the thing on the card. Unbelievably.
That is a game which, like, I enjoyed a lot, but it feels self-published. It feels like it didn't have a developer pass.
Yes. I mean, and to be clear, everyone, this is my favorite game, tied for my favorite game. I love it to pieces. But yeah, the opening bit is quite clunky. There's a lot of steps for something that is so simple and so childishly simple in so many ways. This is one that I think a lot about. When a designer comes up with something brand new, there's two ways it can go. Either they do the cool new thing on top of all this other junk, or they do the childishly simple version. And if they don't do the childishly simple version, usually what happens is someone else makes it, and that's the one that becomes the hit. You see this with video games too. If you see like, what was it? PUBG that came out that was like super hardcore, and then the accessible version, Fortnite, came out. That's the one that exploded. And obviously, lots of people still play PUBG, first mover advantage and all that. But I think Dominion's a really good example of this, where they had a deck building system, and they're like, let's just do deck building. Let's just focus purely. You get cards, you play cards, you get money.
Well,
you buy
it
points.
was part of a bigger game, and he pulled it out. He was like, oh, this is good enough to stand alone. I will say that the sort of flip side of that is, I think I've mentioned this, I might have told this story before. Matt Banchet and I have a game that's got a really cool, weird concept that I'm not going to talk about right now. And Alex came to town and he played it, and he was like, okay, so you've got this really great concept, and I feel like you're going to get this game published because the concept is so great and that someone's going to make the better version of it. You should try to make the better version of it. And we were like, yep, we can see that. We've sort of done like the least interesting version. And least interesting and simple are almost synonymous. So we were going for the simplest version, but we'd end up doing kind of the least interesting version. And he was like, cool, do this, but do it better.
Great note. Alex, what a guy.
I know, right? Friend
and bouncing off of that in the opposite way, I want to have at least one example of when you want to go more complex. So I think similarly to how Dominion came out and correctly was the childishly simple version, and then other people were like, oh, cool. So what if Dominion, but also there's a board? What if Dominion but racing? What if Dominion but... And then you see deck building is now just like at worker placement. It's something that you can have as part of your recipe for a full game, doing lots of other stuff. And of course, there's still just pure deck builders, and that's just fine too. But I think there's nothing wrong with building off of that for sure, and making the more complex version of the thing. I find that usually when I play games, I'll find, oh, there's this really cool thing, and then you have all this extra stuff I don't care about. And so I'm usually trying to say, what's the childishly simple version of that for games that I really like that are they're a little too overdone. There's a Thebes is a great example of a game where the core mechanic is childishly simple. On your turn, literally go anywhere, do anything, and then just pay time equal to the cost. That's so childishly simple, but there is a lot of other stuff around it.
Yeah,
and I think a light version of that could be
I played that at your house with Henry, and just he was 5 or 6 at the time, and so I was just quietly like removing mechanisms as we went. One of the joys of being a game designer is that you can very quickly be like, okay, I'm just going to cut this, and it's not going to be perfectly balanced, but I'm playing with a 5-year-old. It really doesn't have to be.
Yeah, but as an example of a time that I wanted to do something to add to it, Lanterns, designed by our friend Chris Chung. I think Lanterns is a spectacular game. I really love that core mechanism. I think it's so interesting. And I wouldn't call it childishly simple. There's like one thing too many. You play a tile, and then whatever direction is facing you, you get the card of that color, and you cash those in for points in set collection. But there's also like you can match up to these special tiles that give you tokens. You can spend the tokens to swap your cards for other ones. There's just the tiniest
it's
bit
simple.
to it.
It just didn't hit childishly.
Right. And so I went to that and I was like, okay, if I was doing a spin-off of Lanterns, and not copy-pasting here, but I was like, if I'm trying to do something different,
if you're inspired by Lanterns,
yeah, could I do something different and hit the childishly simple? And I realized, you know what, it's so close, I really can't. And so instead I said, you know what, I've never seen a game use that Lanterns mechanic for something else. I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm going to add something to the system, but I'm going to keep it childishly simple. So I made a 4X game where you play the tile, and then whatever action is facing you, you get that action. And once the tile's on the board, not only is it something that you can attach tiles to, it's a board. You can move troops around it. You can area control it. And so that's a way I think that you can look at adding something to a game that looks childishly simple and have it be like the next weight class up while still keeping to that core platonic ideal of childishly simple.
Critter Kitchen is almost an example of what you're talking about, where it's like the Thebes version, because that core that is so clean. Your 3 goes last and takes 3, your 1 goes first and takes 1, your 2 goes in the middle and takes 2. And because it's cardboard alchemy, they deluxified that into like it's an hour-long game, which I think it's been a very well received hour-long game. I like it a lot. We made it for us. But you could absolutely take that mechanic and make a 10-minute game, and make a 15-minute like childishly simple version of the game. I want to give some unhelpful advice, my trademark, which is ideally, like, the dream is to come up with those childishly simple mechanics. Like, if you can come up with a childishly simple mechanic that carries a game. So, like, my 30-second explanation game, I had 3 of those at Origins. I had a really good time because I was able to be like, hey, let's play a game. Here's how you play, and now we are playing. And it's almost like, oh, we're done with the explanation. Okay. Whereas every other game was, well, not every other game, but many of the other games we were playing that weekend was like, okay, so you do this to do this, to do this, to do this. And so my 2 pieces of unhelpful advice are, like, look for those. Search for those. One of the reasons that I, again, love working with Alex is that he calls me sometimes and he's like, hey, I've come up with some mechanics. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that is a published game that we just haven't made yet. Like, that game will 100% be published because that idea is so good. And just from your teaching it, I can tell you what the finished product looks like. Now we just need to make that finished product. We need to actually just put that into a game. And then the second piece of unhelpful advice, and I think that we've talked about this already, is that, like, get those reps in on trimming. I do a lot of co-designs, and a lot of my job, and you've been on both ends of this, where you've known me and I've known you, is just saying no to stuff where it's like, yeah, we don't need that. Like, yeah, that's a very cool idea. We don't need it. Like, yeah, absolutely, we could do that. We don't need to. Like, just cutting everything down. So I took one of these 30-second games to Origins, and sort of like you were saying, every suggestion was like, you could add this, you could add this, you could add this. And I was like, cool, but what you're suggesting is rules, and I don't want to add rules. And they probably would have made the game 7% more balanced, in exchange for being 25% more rules. Because the game is so simple that it has 3 rules. Adding a 4th rule is actually huge. But because people are gamers, they're like, it's fine. Like, you could add that rule. That's a very simple rule. I'm like, great, except it's a rule, and I have a no rule policy. I do not add rules to my games. Even if it makes the game a tiny bit better, it's just not worth the cost. Hey, any closing thoughts on Childishly Simple?
I think we covered it.
Cool. AJ, do you have a publisher tip? Because I forgot to prepare one.
Let me check quick. Publisher tip.
We stole this idea from Print Run, and I was listening to that last night, realizing they call them pub tips. Do you have a pub tip?
We have two that I don't understand that I think are yours in our ideas thing. Box versus bag, print and play, getting prototype to publisher. Is that
yes.
sending?
Okay, amazing. So this probably came out of the Tim Armstrong episode that you haven't had a chance to listen to yet, because I just uploaded the audio for you. Box versus bag. So you go to okay. You are AJ. Role play with me here. Your name is AJ Brandon. Can you get into character? A little uglier.
Brandon AJ.
No, not even close. You've gone to a convention and you're going to hand out a bunch of prototypes, which is the goal basically. If you're doing a lot of pitching, someone, I think it might have been Sen from Lim, posted about this years ago, and I think about it all the time. Suggested instead of putting your prototypes in boxes, put them in bags. It means that you can fit more of them in your bag. It makes it easier to see which one is which. I have one right behind me. Let me grab it. Just came home from Origins, so this is 3 different prototypes that I had. 2 of them are in boxes, because I like working in boxes for when I'm designing, but this one is in a bag, and doesn't it just seem more pleasant? Don't you just want to take this home more than you want to take these home? Boxes can get damaged. In fact, this one's already starting to see some wear and tear. The box can come loose, the lid can come loose, and things can go everywhere. They're
less efficient with space.
They're less efficient with space, and they're harder to you have to Tetris them in a way that you don't with it's solids versus fluids. Whereas a bag, you can if you know this game, you know what you're looking at straight away without having to look for the label on the box or anything like that. It's fully flexible. I hope that's not annoying sound. This happens to be a zip up kind of bag. It's not going to come open. Get a nice Ziploc bag. Yeah, if you're taking a bunch of games with the intent of giving away, save yourself and the publisher a lot of effort by putting them in bags, not boxes.
That's an excellent tip. I like that a lot.
Yes, I'm glad that we could decipher it. AJ, how do you feel about fun?
I like it. How do you
follow-up
feel?
Question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about swallowing bugs?
Not generally a fan, but I'm open to new experiences.
Okay, no, fine. We'll do the fun. You've made your choice. You've made it very obvious what you'd prefer.
So, Peter, professional writer, super interested in sitcoms and comedy in all forms, and arguably a person who makes jokes. What is your favorite joke ever? And this could be, like a physical comedy bit or whatever. Like, what is it? The punchline or the joke or the thing that you saw.
In typical Peter style, I have 4 answers to this. But before I start answering,
I was trying to narrow it down before you preemptively asked.
So, do you remember the time that we were on a call? Do you know what I'm talking about? And you were very casual at the end, hey, can you explain sitcom structure to me?
I don't even remember. Was that a call? I thought I just PM'd you once. But yeah, anyway.
It might have been a PM. And I was AJ, we've done 50 episodes of a podcast about game design, and I think more about sitcom structure than I do about game design. So, I will do my best, but just so you know, and then I typed at you for 2 hours, and then you're like, okay, cool.
I think you gave me a really, really, really short answer, actually, and I was like, oh, all right.
Anyway. Man, it feels like it's a long answer. Okay, so I traditionally was not very good at telling jokes. I'm witty. I'm witty in that I can say something quickly that's funny, and I can do improv, and actually telling a joke is not something I was good at. So I made a concerted effort over the last decade or so to get good at telling jokes. So I have a little store of jokes. So I'm going to give you my favorite short joke to tell and my favorite long joke to tell. This is different to what's my favorite joke from a sitcom or what's my favorite joke from anything like that, because again, I could answer every one of these differently. So I'm going to give you a short joke and a long joke, and you might have heard both of them. Why did the blind man fall in the well?
Why?
Because he didn't see that well.
That's a good one. That's a
I
good
love
one.
it. That's my favorite short joke. It's just so dumb. I'm gonna add a bonus third one in because this is what I do. I taught my son to tell a joke, and so when we were meeting a bunch of people for various reasons, I was staying with him for 3 weeks. Every time we met someone new, I got him to tell the joke, and it was so good. So imagine I'm a 6-year-old because it's much more adorable as a 6-year-old. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cows.
Interrupting cows who?
Moo! The lag made that particularly difficult, but that's part one. Are you ready for part two?
Sure.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting turtle.
Interrupting turtle who? Because he's slow.
Moo! And the thing that tickles me is you still say moo, even though turtles don't say moo. Okay, here's my favorite long joke. A Frenchman, a British man, a young hot blonde, and an old woman are all in a train carriage going across Europe. And the train carriage, the train goes through a tunnel, so everything's completely dark, and you just hear this slap. And they come out of the dark, and the Frenchman is rubbing his face. And the old woman thinks, oh man, while we're in that tunnel, that Frenchman must have groped the blonde, and she slapped him. And the blonde thinks, oh, while we're in that tunnel, the Frenchman must have tried to grope me, but accidentally groped the old woman, and so she slapped him. And the Frenchman thinks, while we were in that tunnel, the British man must have tried to grope the blonde, and she assumed it was me, and she slapped him. And the British man thinks, I hope we go through another tunnel so I can slap the Frenchman again. What is your favorite joke, AJ?
Mine, I'm going to go with a joke that I saw in a sitcom, not like a, what would you call it? Just like a joke that you tell people?
A joke.
Yeah. So, the funniest joke I've ever seen was on a TV show called Chuck. You ever hear about that one?
Yes, I've seen it. I don't know the joke you're talking about, but I know the show.
Sure. So the whole premise of the show is it's a guy who ends up having to become a spy, but he's trying to live like normal life at the same time. He works at like a Best Buy equivalent or whatever. So it's like, oh no, spy world intersecting with normal dorky Best Buy world. Hilarity ensues. And there was one episode where he was having a family dinner and finds out that the food was poisoned. So he can't let his family eat the food, but he can't just say, hey guys, I'm a spy. The food is poisoned. Don't eat it. So they sit down like, oh, this looks great, and start picking up the knives and forks. And he's like, guys, let me show you a trick. And he runs over to the table, grabs the tablecloth, yanks it, and they're like, no, what are you doing? And he yanks it perfectly. And everyone's like, wow, that was great. And reach back down and start eating the food.
That's very good. There was a show called Vicar of Dibley. It's a British sitcom. And in the Christmas episode, it's played by Dawn French, who's a larger woman. And so the character loves food. That's kind of her whole thing. She loves food. And she's the vicar, so the priest of the local town called Dibley. And on Christmas, she accidentally gets invited to 3 Christmases that she can't say no to. One is like her best friend who's really excited. One is like the guy who has all the money, who's like really lonely. And so she ends up doing, I think it's either 2, I think it's 3. I think she does 3 back-to-back full Christmas dinners where every single time the families are like, no, you don't leave your plate empty. Like, oh, do you not like the cooking? Oh, she doesn't like the cooking. So she has to eat 3 full Christmas dinners. And she gets home. And the local, like, shepherd, like, there's shepherds in this town. The local shepherd is at the door. And he's like, hey, I'm really sorry to bother you. But since you got here, I have felt, like, less suicidal and more good about my life. And so for the first time in 20 years, I've made you a Christmas dinner. And so she's just like as full as you can be after eating 3 Christmas dinners and cannot get out of eating a 4th one. It absolutely kills me. Okay, I'm going to answer one more, AJ. You've opened up a can of worms here. Do you know the joke club joke?
No.
I often say this is my favorite joke because it has multiple punchlines, and I don't know any other joke that has multiple punchlines. And it's a joke about jokes. And I used to have more punchlines. I've lost them. So at some point I'll do a bunch of research and find the missing punchlines. So a guy invites his friend to the joke club. And the guy comes in, sits next to him, and there's a bunch of people like ready for the jokes. Someone stands up and says, number 62, and everyone cracks up. And someone else stands up and says, 104, and everyone's laughing. And the guy says, what is happening? And he says, well, oh, sorry, it's your first time. Yeah, we've all heard these jokes so many times that we don't need to tell the joke anymore. We just reference the number, and then we all remember the joke and laugh. And so the friend stands up and says, 41. Dead silence. And he sits down. His friend's like, mate, it's not the joke, it's how you tell it. That's punchline 1.
That's good.
Punchline 2 is someone else stands up and says 206, and everyone loses it. Everyone is just losing their mind, and the guy leans over and is like, what's so funny about that one? And his friend says, we haven't heard that one before. Anyway, that's the Joke Club joke. I used to know 2 other punchlines, and I can't remember them, so I got to go on a quest for them. AJ, how do we end this show? By me telling 75 jokes in a row.
And then by saying goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. You can find us and our incredible Discord community in the show notes, or reach out to us privately at funproblemspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend.